Find a comfortable position. Let your body settle into its weight. Allow your breathing to even out. There is no destination to reach tonight, no arrival to consider. The journey has already slowed. The path will carry itself. When you are ready, we begin. Tonight's story is called A Gentle Journey Through Sun-Warmed Hills. You are already partway up when the awareness of walking settles in. There is no marked beginning behind you, no clear point you can name as the start. The hill simply holds you where you are, mid-slope, as though you have always been moving across it at this steady, unhurried pace. The ground rises gently beneath your feet, not steep enough to demand effort, only enough to remind you quietly that gravity is present and consistent. Dry grasses brush against your calves with a soft whisper. Their tips are pale gold, warmed all day by sunlight that has begun to lower, but has not yet loosened its hold. The air carries warmth that feels stored rather than active. It rests against your skin like something remembered. When you inhale, the breath feels a little clearer here, touched with faint scent, sun-warmed earth, crushed thyme hidden among stones, the dry sweetness of grass that has spent a whole day drinking light. Nothing sharp, nothing urgent, just land holding heat gently, releasing it slowly. Your steps follow the incline without instruction. Heel meets soil, then the quiet roll forward. The surface beneath you is dry but forgiving. Fine dust shifts slightly under pressure, adjusting itself to your weight. Small stones press into the sole briefly, then settle back into place once you have passed. You do not look for a summit. The hill does not offer one in a dramatic way. It rises in long, generous folds. Each crest reveals another beyond it, layered in softer and softer tones as they recede. The horizon is wide but gentle, blurred slightly by warmth lingering in the air. Sunlight rests along the tops of grasses, catching in their fine strands. When the breeze moves, and it does lightly, almost as an afterthought, the field shimmers in small, coordinated shifts. Not a rush, not a wave, just a slow rearranging of light. Your shoulders remain low. There is no need to brace against anything here. The incline encourages a slightly deeper breath, but not strain. The rhythm of walking adjusts itself naturally, step, lift, settle. The body seems to remember how to do this, as though it has always known how to move through open hills at this hour. A flat stone sits beside the path, warmed through. You brush your hand across it in passing. The surface holds heat evenly, close to the temperature of your skin. For a moment, there is no distinction between warmth stored in stone and warmth carried in your palm. Then your hand lifts, and the difference returns gently. Below you, the land dips and folds. Small hedgerows trace faint boundaries between fields. A distant roof catches the lowering sun, glinting softly before releasing it again. The distance feels broad but not isolating. Everything is visible in calm shapes. Nothing demands closer inspection. The grasses change texture as you move higher. Here they are shorter, their color leaning towards straw. The earth shows through in patches, pale, chalky soil that softens beneath each step. Your feet adjust automatically, landing a fraction more carefully where the ground loosens. A fence line runs loosely along part of the slope, its posts leaning slightly at irregular angles. The wood has faded to silver in places, smoothed by years of sun and weather. One post holds a shallow notch, worn, so thin it is nearly absorbed into the grain. It could have been made deliberately, long ago, or simply happened over time. Either way, it remains without insisting on a story. The breeze lifts again, warmer this time, moving across the hillside in a wide sweep. You feel it along your arms, through your sleeves, across your face. It does not push. It does not pull. It simply rearranges the air, carrying with it the faint murmur of insects hidden low in the grass. You crest a small rise almost without noticing. The ground levels briefly beneath you, allowing your stride to lengthen for a few steps. From here, the view widens. Hills extend outward in soft succession, each one slightly dimmer than the last, dissolving into a pale haze where sky and land meet without sharp division. The sky holds a mellow brightness now, no longer high and glaring. It has softened into something golden and diffuse, light spread thinly across a broad canvas. There are no dramatic clouds, only faint veils of vapor that catch the sun in muted tones, as if even the sky is choosing calm. Your breathing settles into an easy rhythm. The incline resumes gently, and your steps shorten without conscious thought. The movement feels less like climbing and more like drifting upward along a gradual curve. A small cluster of wildflowers interrupts the dry grass, muted purples and faded whites. They lean slightly toward the light, their petals thin and almost translucent. You pass them without pausing. Their presence registers quietly, then blends back into the hillside. The warmth of the day lingers in the ground beneath you. When your foot presses down, there is a faint sense of heat rising through the soul. Subtle but consistent, as though the hill has been holding sunlight in reserve, releasing it in measured amounts as evening approaches. Another gentle crest arrives, then levels. This time you pause without deciding to. The pause happens naturally, your steps slowing until they become still. You stand there, not at a summit, not at a destination, simply at a point where the land opens more fully. From here, the hills unfold in quiet layers. No sharp ridge lines, no sudden drops, just long, rolling shapes folding into one another in steady succession. Light rests along their upper edges, leaving the lower slopes in soft shadow. You let your gaze drift outward. There is no need to fix on any single point. The distance does not challenge you. It invites nothing. It simply exists. The breeze brushes past again, carrying warmth mixed with the faint, dry scent of earth. Somewhere far off, a bell sounds once thin and distant, then settles back into silence. It does not repeat. It leaves no echo strong enough to linger. Your weight shifts forward again, and walking resumes without effort. The hill continues beneath you, rising just enough to keep the rhythm of breath slightly deeper than it would be on level ground. Grasses bow and lift in slow sequence around you. The sunlight grows softer, its color leaning toward amber. Shadows lengthen almost imperceptibly, stretching across folds of land in thin, quiet lines. You move along the contour now rather than directly upward, following a faint path that reveals itself only by the way the grasses lie slightly flatter. The path does not announce itself. It simply accommodates your steps. Each footfall presses lightly into dust and small fragments of stone. The ground accepts your weight, then releases it again as you lift. The cycle repeats evenly without interruption. Ahead, another gentle rise waits, not higher, not lower, simply part of the same continuous motion of land. You approach it without anticipation. The hill does not promise a view. It does not withhold one either. As you near the crest, the sun drops by another fraction. The light spreads thinner across the grass, turning each blade into a slender filament of gold. The warmth remains, though you can sense it beginning to soften, becoming less of a presence on the skin and more of a quiet layer in the air. You reach the top of this rise and slow once more. The horizon expands again, revealing more distant slopes fading into haze. The land stretches outward in calm succession, each fold complete in itself. There is no need to go farther. There is no need to stop. The hill holds you exactly where you are, in the wide, sun-warmed space between ascent and descent, as the day eases into its next, softer hour. You begin moving again with the same steady simplicity. The path continues as a suggestion rather than a line, and your body follows it as though it has always been part of the hillside's quiet rhythm. You continue without needing to decide where to place the next step. The hill guides you in small adjustments, Slight tilts of ground, shallow pockets of softer soil, gentle stretches where grass lies flatter as if it has been pressed by wind and time. Nothing here asks you to concentrate. Your feet simply meet the earth, and the earth answers by holding you. The path angles gradually, not straight up now, but across the slope as though the land is offering an easier line. Your body responds with a quiet shift through the hips and shoulders, a tiny rebalancing, a natural correction that happens before thought arrives. The grasses here are finer. Their tips move when you pass, then lift again behind you, leaving no obvious trace. They are dry enough to whisper softly against your clothing, but not brittle. They bend rather than break. The warmth in the air feels less like sunlight and more like the after effect of sunlight, a kind of gentle residue. It rests evenly across your arms and the back of your neck. When you inhale, you notice the faint mineral tone of the hillside, dry soil, chalk, the subtle bitterness of crushed herb leaves. The scent rises and fades without clinging. A small dip in the land appears ahead, shallow enough that you feel it in the ankles before you see it. You move down into it with almost no change in pace. Knees soften, weight shifts forward. The descent is so slight it feels like the earth has simply lowered itself for a moment. At the bottom, the grass is a touch thicker, a little greener. The soil holds more moisture here, not wet, just less parched. Your steps land with a softer sound, as though the ground has added a thin layer of cushion. Insects gather in the sheltered air. Their presence is felt more than heard at first, an ambient hum that sits low in the background. When it does rise into awareness, it comes as a single, steady thread rather than distinct buzzing. It does not demand attention. It blends into the quiet. You cross the hollow and begin the gentle rise out of it. The incline is easy. It encourages one deeper breath than another. Your lungs expand fully, not strained, simply engaged. Exhale leaves slowly, as if the body is learning to release a fraction more with each cycle. A line of stones emerges along the edge of the slope, loose, scattered, not a wall exactly, more like a natural gathering. Some are half buried. Some sit on the surface with rounded edges worn smooth by weather. You step near them without needing to avoid them sharply. Your feet adjust as though this is familiar terrain. One stone rests a little higher than the others, flat on top. It catches the lingering warmth and holds it. When your fingers brush it, the surface is neither hot nor cool. It meets you in the middle, heat stored in rock, heat carried in skin, balanced. You continue onward. The hillside opens into a longer traverse, the ground now moving in a slow, horizontal sweep. The view changes gradually as you progress, not by sudden reveal, but by quiet shift of angle. Hills rearrange themselves. A fold you saw earlier becomes a different fold from here. The landscape does not repeat, it repositions. Far below, a faint track curves between fields. It is pale and narrow, a line that appears and disappears behind gentle rises. It doesn't call you toward it. It simply exists as proof that land can hold passage without insisting on destination. The sky has softened further. The gold has thinned into a quieter tone, and there is the faintest hint of cooler color higher up, muted blue laning toward early evening. The transition is seamless, like one layer dissolving into another. You pass a patch of wild thyme again, or something like it, small leaves clustered close to the ground, their scent releasing when your foot brushes near. The aroma lifts briefly, sharp for a moment against the broader dryness, then settles back into the air as if it was never separate. The breeze changes direction. It comes now from the side, crossing the slope in a wide, gentle sweep. You feel it along your cheek, your forearm, the outer edge of your shoulder. It isn't cold. It isn't warm. It simply carries the day's temperature forward. Ahead, a simple gate appears where a thin fence line meets the path. The fence is not strict or imposing. posts lean slightly. Wire runs between them with quiet patience. The gate stands partly open as though it expects no argument from anyone passing through. You walk through without touching it. The hinge does not creak. It holds still, accepting your passage in silence. The wood is weathered smooth where hands have gripped it over years. The surface carries the faint scent of sun-dried timber, resin warmed, then cooled, then warmed again. Beyond the gate, the grass grows taller and the slope becomes gentler. The path becomes less defined, no longer pressed into the ground. Instead, it is suggested by the way your body naturally chooses the easiest line, where the land is fractionally firmer, where the grass lies a touch flatter. Walking here feels like moving through a field that is listening rather than reacting. The grasses part. They return. Nothing holds onto your presence. The light continues to change, not dramatically. The color leans slightly deeper. Shadows lengthen, but remain soft at the edges. The hills begin to show more contour through tone rather than line, light resting on upper slopes, shade gathering in folds. You climb another small rise and pause briefly, not from effort, but because stillness arrives. It arrives the way evening arrives, gradually without announcement. From this point, the view widens again. The hills spread outward in quiet succession, like fabric laid in broad folds. No single ridge dominates. No valley looks deeper than it is. The whole landscape feels rounded, as if time has smoothed every edge. Your breathing slows a fraction. You feel the weight of your body distributed evenly through both feet. The ground supports it without any sense of pushback. You are not held up by tension. You are held up by earth. When you start walking again, the movement is softer than before. The stride shortens, arms swing less, hands hang nearer your sides, fingers relaxed. You notice the subtle sensation of fabric shifting with each step, sleeve brushing against itself. The sound is barely there, but it adds to the sense of quiet continuation. A lone tree appears ahead, rounded and uncomplicated, its canopy gently stirred by the breeze. You approach it without hurry. The shade beneath it is cooler, but not cold. It feels like stepping into a thinner layer of warmth. You pass beneath the outer branches. Leaves flicker softly in the low light, catching amber, releasing it, then settling into deeper green. The trunk is textured with dry bark, warmed at its core, cooler at the surface now that the sun is lower. For a moment, your pace slows further, as if the tree's stillness is contagious. Then you move beyond it, and the open hillside returns. The air feels clearer again outside the shade. The light is lower now, more angled. The grasses catch it differently. Their tips glow while their bases are already turning toward dusk. A long, gradual descent begins, so gentle it feels like easing rather than going down. The body responds naturally. Knees soften. Weight shifts forward. Footfalls become quieter still. The hill seems to offer support in the descent, giving your legs less work, not more. In the lower stretch, the earth is darker, richer. You notice the faint scent of moisture held in the soil. Not wet, just less dry. It cools the air slightly. The cooling is clean even, and it encourages your breath to lengthen. You cross a shallow basin where grass grows thicker and softer. The ground yields a fraction more. Your steps sink just enough to feel cushioned, then lift cleanly again. A small flower stands near the edge of the basin, petals mostly closed, preparing itself for night. Its presence is quiet. It does not request attention. It simply holds its timing. You pass it, and it remains behind you unchanged. The hills ahead rise again, but in such a mild arc that the ascent feels like drifting upward. Your breath deepens slightly, not because you need more air, but because the body chooses it. Inhale arrives slow. Exhale leaves slower. The sky begins to deepen. Gold near the horizon shifts toward a softer, darker tone. Higher up, blue moves toward indigo by degrees too small to count. A small circle of stones comes into view, loose, low, perhaps once arranged deliberately. Now it sits without explanation, edges softened by time. You approach it without intention, drawn by its quiet presence rather than by any thought. The stones are warmer than the air. When you place your palm against one, it holds the day's heat like a memory. The contact feels grounding, solid, complete. One stone has a shallow groove in its surface, smooth from repeated touch. You rest your hand there for a moment. The groove fits the curve of your palm as if it has learned it. No story rises, no meaning demands itself. There is only touch meeting surface and the quiet fact of warmth. You step away and continue along the ridge. The wind passes again, lighter now, moving across the grasses in a slow sweep. The hillside shimmers in muted motion, then settles. The movement feels slower than earlier, as though everything is easing into a softer pace. Your steps continue, each one complete on its own. The light thins further. The land becomes more about tone and temperature than color. The hill still holds you, steady and patient, and you move within it as evening gathers, not as an ending, but as another gentle layer settling into place. The ridge continues, not upward, not downward, just forward in the softest sense. The land beneath you feels wider now, less shaped by direction, more shaped by presence. Your steps remain unhurried. Heel, roll, settle. The rhythm carries itself, you do not manage it. The grasses brush lightly against your calves, their texture has changed again. Cooler now, heavier with the first suggestion of night moisture. When your hand drifts outward, fingertips grazing their tops, the stems bend easily and return. Nothing holds onto you, nothing resists. The air feels denser here along the side of the hill. It gathers gently in low pockets, resting close to the ground. When you inhale, the scent is faint and even, dry soil, warmed stone, a trace of crushed herb somewhere behind you. The path becomes less visible, not lost, simply absorbed into the wider field. You follow the contour rather than a line. Your body reads the tilt of the earth without needing markers. A shallow incline appears beneath you, so gradual you feel it in the ankles before the eyes register it. Your steps shorten slightly. Calves engage just enough. Breath deepens. Inhale, exhale. The ascent is steady and forgiving. You crest it without ceremony. The horizon shifts. The hills beyond rearrange themselves in softer layers. What was once separate now blends. Tone into tone, shadow into fading light. The sky holds a quieter color now. Gold thinning, blue deepening, no edge dividing them, just transition. You continue. The wind has settled almost entirely. Where it once brushed across the ridge, it now rests. The stillness feels intentional, as though the hills have decided to hold their breath for a moment. Your shoulders lower further. The space between breaths widens. A small depression in the land gathers darker grass. You step into it. The soil yields a fraction more. Sound softens further. Your foot lifts. The ground restores itself. You climb out again, the incline barely noticeable. Movement feels internal now, less about covering space, more about sustaining rhythm. The light continues to fade. Shadows expand gently along the folds of the hills. They do not sharpen. They spread. A single stone appears ahead, pale against darkening grass. You pass it. It remains unchanged. The hills no longer present landmarks. No fences here. No gates, only curves repeating in long, patient arcs. You become aware of the way fabric shifts along your arms, a subtle brushing, a faint sound barely louder than breath. The body feels heavier in the best way, grounded, supported. You move along another gentle descent. Gravity assists without pulling, knees soften, weight flows forward. The valley below feels deeper now, though it has not changed shape. It is simply darker. The air cools another fraction as you enter it. The temperature difference is even, balanced. You notice it first along your wrists, then your cheeks. Breathing lengthens again. Inhale, exhale. The insects return faintly. A low, steady hum, not rising, not falling, just present. You cross the valley floor slowly. The grasses here are shorter, dampened slightly. Your steps leave no sound, no trace. You climb the opposite slope without thinking of it as climbing. The rise feels more like the land lifting you than you lifting yourself. Ankle, knee, hip. Each joint adjusts quietly. The sky above deepens into indigo. The last warmth of color dissolves. The hills become silhouettes, not sharp ones, rounded, soft at the edges. Your gaze lowers naturally. You no longer search the horizon. The immediate ground is enough. Lift, place, release. The pattern continues. The ridge narrows briefly, then widens again. Your arms barely move now. Hands rest closer to your sides, fingers relaxed. A faint breeze returns, light, cooler than before. It passes across your shoulders, through the grasses, then disappears. Nothing lingers. The land flattens into a long plateau, open, wide. The sound of your breathing feels louder in the absence of wind, but even that is soft. Inhale, exhale. The plateau stretches outward without definition. No summit, no boundary, only continuity. You feel the weight of your body more clearly now, not fatigue, presence. Each footfall lands fully before lifting again. There is a brief suspension between steps, a quiet balance point. Then movement resumes, the air settles even further, cool and steady. The scent of earth grows subtler, almost neutral. You move through another shallow dip. The ground softens slightly, then firms again. No dramatic change, just variation. The hills seem closer now, not in distance, in intimacy. Their curves surround rather than stretch away. The night deepens gently, no sudden darkness, only a gradual thickening of tone. The sky becomes uniform. The first faint brightness overhead does not stand out sharply. It glows quietly. You continue, your pace slows again, not forced. Allowed. The intervals between steps lengthen. Lift, pause, place, pause, release. The rhythm feels tidal now. A gentle internal wave. The body mirrors the hills. Slow rise, gentle fall, even rest. A distant movement of air crosses the slope behind you. The grasses respond in one unified motion, then stillness returns. Your shoulders release another fraction. Neck softens, jaw unclenches without instruction. The land holds you evenly. You crest another low rise. At the top, you pause. Breathing steady, feet planted, weight balanced. The hills extend in layered darkness. No single contour demands attention. The world feels simplified. Ground, sky, breath. You begin moving again. The descent is almost imperceptible. Gravity guides gently. You follow. The air cools another subtle degree. You feel it along the bridge of your nose, along the backs of your hands. The plateau widens once more. Sound disperses more easily here. Even silence feels larger. Your steps shorten again, walking becomes nearly silent. The grasses barely stir, your awareness drifts inward. The bend of knee, the roll of foot, the slow expansion of lungs. Everything outside aligns with everything inside. No separation. The hills no longer feel external. They are rhythm, pattern, steady repetition. The sky rests in a single tone. The land folds quietly beneath you. You continue moving, not toward anything, not away from anything, simply within the steady presence of evening settling across sun-warmed hills. Lift, place, release. The journey does not end, it softens. And as it softens, your movement softens with it. The next step arrives more slowly, not delayed, just unhurried. Your heel lowers into grass that feels cooler than before. Moisture has begun to gather lightly along the stems. Not dew yet, just the first suggestion of it. The contact is gentle. You notice how evenly your weight settles now. No sharp transfer, no push, just a quiet agreement between foot and ground. The hills continue their patient folding. Rise, ease, lower, ease. The repetition is so consistent it no longer feels like repetition. It feels like stability. The sky above holds its deepened tone without change. No streak of color remains. No lingering gold. Only a wide, even dusk. You sense space more than you see it. The outline of one hill blends into the next. Distance has become texture rather than measurement. Your breathing adjusts again. Inhale arrives slightly slower. Exhale stretches just a little longer. The pause between them widens into comfort. You move across another shallow contour in the land. The ground tilts down almost imperceptibly. Knees soften, ankles respond. The descent feels like settling into a chair that perfectly fits your shape. There is no jolt, only support. A faint rustle passes through the grasses to your right, not wind, perhaps something small shifting in the cover of night. The sound does not gather meaning. It appears, it fades. You continue. The plateau ahead feels broader still. Open, unmarked. Your steps grow smaller, not fewer, just lighter. Lift, hover, place. The hovering lengthens. Balance feels effortless in that suspended moment before contact returns. Your arms hang almost completely still now. The slight swing has reduced to the smallest counterbalance. Fingers remain relaxed. The cool air brushes evenly across your skin. It carries no urgency, only consistency. You realize the hills no longer require navigation. There is nothing to decide, no direction to choose. Movement continues because rhythm continues, and rhythm continues because breath continues. The land feels timeless in its steadiness. It does not change suddenly. It does not surprise. It simply unfolds in the same slow cadence it has held since you first began walking. You crest one final, barely noticeable rise. Pause, not to stop, just to exist. The darkened hills stretch outward in calm succession. The sky rests above them without edge. Your breath moves in and out with quiet certainty. And for a long, unmeasured moment, the distinction between walking and resting fades completely. The land continues without announcement. You do not remember deciding to keep walking. Your body simply did. The ridge beneath you has softened into something less defined now. It no longer rises clearly. It no longer falls clearly. It moves in long, shallow arcs that feel almost level. Your steps follow those arcs without effort. Lift, settle, release. The rhythm remains steady, though slower than before. There is no sound from your movement. The grasses absorb it. The soil receives it. The sky above has deepened fully into evening. Not black, not yet. A wide, even indigo that feels thick and calm. The horizon is no longer a line. It is a blending. Hill into sky, sky into hill, edges dissolving into tone. You notice how little light is required to continue. The ground remains visible enough. The contours still guide your balance. There is no need for brightness. Your eyes adjust naturally, softening their focus. Detail fades. Shape remains. The land feels larger in this reduced clarity, not because it has changed, because your attention has widened. You walk into a shallow dip in the hillside. The descent is gentle enough that your body barely registers it. Knees bend slightly, ankles flex. The air in the dip feels cooler, held lower, resting closer to the soil. It brushes your shins as you move through it. You inhale slowly. The scent has shifted. Less sun-warmed earth now, more mineral tone, more quiet dampness gathering near the surface. The day has fully withdrawn its heat. What remains is balanced. Your shoulders drop another fraction. The muscles along your spine loosen in increments, so small they almost escape notice. Walking no longer feels like motion across terrain. It feels like continuation within it. You rise out of the dip. The incline is so subtle it feels like breath lifting in your chest. Inhale, lift, exhale, level. The sequence repeats without conscious thought. A cluster of stones appears ahead, not arranged, not deliberate, just gathered where the soil has thinned. Their surfaces catch the last of the ambient glow faintly. Rounded, weathered. You step around them easily. The path, if it still exists, has dissolved entirely now. There is only grass and earth and the memory of where your feet have just been. Behind you, no trace remains. The hills stretch outward in long folds. Each one mirrors the last, not identical, but consistent. You feel the weight of your body more distinctly now, not heavy, grounded. Each footfall sinks a fraction deeper before lifting again. The intervals between steps widen comfortably. You pause without deciding to. Feet planted evenly. The silence deepens. It is not empty, it is layered. A faint insect tone hums somewhere below the ridge, even, unbroken. It continues for several breaths, then fades. Your breathing remains steady. Inhale, cool air entering. Exhale, warmth leaving gently. You begin walking again. The movement feels softer than before. The distinction between step and pause has thinned. You crest another slight rise. From here, the land looks endless, not vast in scale, endless in repetition. There is comfort in that repetition. Nothing unpredictable waits beyond the next fold. The hills move as they have always moved. You follow them without intention. The sky shifts another shade deeper. The indigo grows thicker. A single faint star appears, not sharp, just present. It does not call attention. It rests where it is. You notice how your arms have nearly stilled. They hang close to your sides, hands relaxed. The swing that once balanced your stride is no longer needed. Walking has become internal. The air rests evenly across your skin, cool at your wrists, cool at the back of your neck. The land slopes downward again. This descent feels longer, not steeper, more extended. Your steps lengthen slightly to meet it. Heel touches softly. Weight rolls forward. The valley below is darker. Its center absorbs more light. You move into it slowly. The air grows denser. Moisture gathers faintly along the grasses. Your shoes brush through them with quiet resistance. The scent shifts again. Cool earth. Faint green, you feel a deeper exhale leave your chest. The body recognizes the shelter of the hollow. The hills around you curve inward protectively, not enclosing, just holding. The rhythm of walking slows further. Lift, pause, place. The pause lengthens. Balance feels effortless in that suspended moment. You reach the lowest point of the valley and stop, not to rest, simply because stillness arrives. The night has settled fully now. The sky holds a uniform depth. The hills appear as soft silhouettes. Your breathing moves evenly. Inhale, exhale. The exhale grows longer than the inhale. Your jaw loosens slightly. Your shoulders sink. A breeze drifts briefly across the valley floor. It bends the grasses in one unified motion. The sound is a single sweep, then silence again. You take another step. The ascent out of the valley is gradual. Your body adjusts without strain. Calves engage lightly. Breath deepens for 2 cycles, then levels. The ground feels firmer here, less moisture. Each step meets stable soil. The hills above you are darker still. Their curves blend into one another. You crest the rise and continue. The rhythm now feels almost meditative, not in intention, in effect. The repetition has smoothed every edge of thought. There is nothing to solve here, nothing to reach, only continuation. The star overhead brightens slightly as your eyes adjust. Another faint point appears beside it. They do not multiply dramatically, they remain sparse. The sky does not demand awe, it simply expands. Your steps slow again, the intervals stretch further. Lift, hover, settle. The hovering feels longer than the contact now. You sense a gentle heaviness in your limbs, not fatigue, gravity accepted fully. The air feels cooler along your cheeks. Your hands brush lightly against your thighs as you walk. There is no urgency left in your stride. The hills continue their patient unfolding. Rise, ease, lower, ease. The repetition has become soothing. You walk along another ridge without noticing when you climbed it. The incline was too subtle to register. From here, the darkness feels deeper. The valleys below appear almost liquid in tone. You do not descend, you remain along the contour. The land beneath you is level enough to require no correction. Your breathing slows again. Inhale, quiet. Exhale, longer still. The space between breaths grows spacious. You pause once more, feet evenly planted. The body feels aligned with the slope. The hills around you feel less like terrain and more like presence. They exist without demand. You realize that walking has become indistinguishable from resting. The movement is so minimal it feels suspended. You take another step, then another, but these feel less like progression and more like continuation of something already complete. The night deepens another fraction. The stars remain faint, the hills remain steady, the air remains cool and even, and you continue not toward anything, not away from anything, but within the slow, enduring rhythm of land that has always known how to rise and settle without urgency. The ridge beneath you widens slightly again, not enough to notice at first, just enough that your steps no longer need to correct for tilt. The ground feels even, stable. The air carries a faint coolness now that settles along your collarbone. It does not invite a reaction, it simply rests there. You become aware of the weight of your arms, how little they are doing, how little they need to do. A small patch of grass ahead lies flatter than the rest, pressed in a gentle oval. Perhaps wind, perhaps time. You step across it without altering pace. The night holds its tone. No brighter, no darker, just steady. Your breathing continues in its own rhythm, the inhale arriving quietly, the exhale releasing a fraction longer. The hills maintain their soft repetition. You take another step, and the land receives it without change. The slope lowers again, not steeply, just enough that your body leans forward by a fraction. Your weight settles into the next step before you think about it. Heel, roll, release. The movement feels quieter now, more internal. The grasses here are shorter, lying close to the ground as though evening has pressed them down gently. When your foot passes through them, they bend without sound. The air feels cooler in this shallow descent, not cold, just balanced differently than before. You breathe it in slowly. It feels thinner, clearer. The basin ahead gathers shadow in its center, not a heavy darkness, just a pooling of tone. The hills curve inward around it, forming a wide bowl that does not enclose, only softens. You move into it without adjusting your pace. The ground becomes slightly firmer beneath your soles, less dust, more compact earth. Your steps grow steadier in response. The sound of insects returns briefly, a faint thread, then another. They do not overlap in any pattern. They rise, pause, fade. Your arms hang closer to your sides now. The swing that carried you earlier has reduced to almost nothing. You are not propelling yourself forward anymore. You are being carried by continuity. The sky above has deepened into a smooth, even field. No edges, no contrast, just quiet depth. You reach the center of the basin. The air rests lower here, cooler against your ankles, heavier near the ground. Your breath responds. Inhale slightly deeper. Exhale more slowly. The soil yields a fraction under your weight, not enough to slow you, just enough to cushion the step. You notice how complete each footfall feels before the next begins. There is no overlap, no rush. Lift, settle, lift again. The repetition has become calming. You begin to rise out of the basin. The incline is gradual, so gradual that your body adjusts before you register the change. Calves engage gently. Your spine tilts forward. Breath deepens in quiet response. The grasses thin slightly as you climb. Exposed patches of pale soil catch what little light remains. They appear almost silver now, not bright, just lighter than the surrounding ground. A small stone rests half buried near your path. Its surface is smooth, rounded by weather. You step beside it without altering course. It remains exactly as it was, unmoved. The crest approaches without announcement. No sharp edge marks it, only a subtle leveling. When you reach it, the land opens outward again in overlapping arcs. The hills stretch away in quiet succession, each one softer than the last. You pause without deciding to. Feet planted evenly. Weight balanced, breath steady. The silence here feels fuller. Layered, there is space within it. You become aware of the faint warmth still stored in your core, left over from the afternoon sun. It meets the cool air evenly across your skin. Neither dominates, they coexist. You begin walking again. The ridge narrows slightly, not enough to restrict you, just enough to refine your steps. The ground here feels firmer, compacted by seasons of wind. Your stride shortens to match. The air moves across your shoulders in a thin, steady current. It does not push, it accompanies. You follow the ridge as it curves gently to the right. The horizon tilts almost imperceptibly. Hills on one side rise slightly higher. On the other, they descend into darker folds. The light continues to thin, not disappearing, just spreading itself evenly until contrast loses meaning. You notice how little thought is required now. Walking sustains itself. The land offers what is needed. Another shallow dip appears ahead. You enter it without anticipation. The temperature lowers again by a degree, so small it feels imagined. Yet your body registers it. A deeper breath, a softer exhale. The grasses here are denser. Their tips brush lightly against your calves, cooler than before. You move through them without sound. The basin is wider than the last. The hills curve inward around you, creating a sense of shelter without confinement. You do not linger, you do not hurry. The repetition continues. Lift, place, release. The sky above deepens further. A faint brightness might linger near the horizon, but it no longer defines the landscape. Everything has merged into tone. You reach the far side of the basin. The slope rises once more. This incline feels longer, though not steeper. Your breathing adjusts accordingly. Inhale as the ground lifts. Exhale as it levels. The pattern forms naturally. At the crest, the wind strengthens briefly. It crosses the ridge in a broader sweep. The grasses bend together in one coordinated motion, then settle. You feel the air pass across your cheeks. Along your wrists, it leaves no trace. The ridge widens again. Your steps slow, not from fatigue, from alignment. The hills no longer feel like terrain to navigate. They feel like rhythm. Your awareness lowers closer to the body. The bend of knee, the roll of foot, the slight sway of weight from side to side. Breathing remains even. Inhale, exhale. The intervals between movements widen gently. You move into another gradual descent. This one is nearly imperceptible. The land simply lowers beneath you. The darkness gathers slightly in its center. The air here feels stiller. You step into it without hesitation. The ground becomes softer underfoot, not unstable, just yielding enough to absorb sound entirely. Your walking becomes silent. The absence of noise deepens the quiet. The hills on either side blur further into one continuous silhouette. No edges, no lines, only curve. You realize that you are no longer looking outward. Your gaze rests somewhere ahead of your steps, close. Contained, the body feels heavier now, not weighed down, grounded. Each footfall settles more fully before lifting again. Lift, settle, pause, then lift again. The repetition has stretched. Time feels wider between steps. You move toward the far edge of the basin. The slope rises once more, barely noticeable. Your calves engage quietly. Breath deepens. The sky overhead has become a uniform depth. The faintest star might exist there, but it does not sharpen into focus. It remains soft, distant. You crest the rise slowly. The land beyond unfolds in darker waves, indistinct but steady. There is no landmark, no marker of progression, only continuation. Your shoulders release another fraction. Your jaw loosens. The muscles along your neck soften. The walking continues, not as effort, not as goal, just as presence. The ridge extends ahead in a long, patient arc. The hills hold their shape quietly. The air rests evenly against your skin, and you move within that steady, unbroken rhythm. The ridge does not narrow again, it simply continues. Your steps feel smaller now, not shorter, more contained. The contact between foot and earth grows deliberate without effort. The soil beneath you feels evenly cool, balanced. You notice how your breathing has lengthened. Inhale arriving without sound. Exhale leaving more slowly than before. There is space between them now, not emptiness, space. The hills ahead no longer separate clearly from one another. Their outlines blur into one soft wave. You move along the crest as though tracing a line that was always there. The air rests steadily across your shoulders. No current, no shift, just presence. Your arms hang fully relaxed, fingers slightly curled. No tension in the joints. A faint dip appears beneath you. You step into it without anticipation. The ground yields gently, then firms again. The change is subtle, almost imagined. The sky deepens another shade, still uniform, still calm. Your awareness lowers further into the rhythm of movement. Lift, settle, pause. The hills hold their patient curves. You continue. The land widens slightly again, not visibly, but you feel it in the way sound disperses. Even your breathing seems to travel farther before returning. A low stretch of grass brushes your calves, cooler now, dampened by the settling air. Each blade bends and lifts without resistance. You do not look back. There is nothing behind you that requires review. The ridge continues beneath your feet in shallow arcs. No sharp crest, no defined edge, just a long, steady contour that neither rises nor falls in any decisive way. Your steps soften again. The heel meets soil with less emphasis. The roll forward becomes smoother, the push away lighter. Walking feels almost suspended between contact and release. A faint thread of scent moves through the air. Dry grass, stone cooling, something mineral and quiet. It does not linger. It passes evenly through you. The sky has deepened fully now into one continuous tone. No gold remains, no trace of amber, only depth. You crest another barely there rise. You would not have named it a rise earlier. Now you notice the shift because your breath lifts by a fraction, then settles again. The land stretches forward in long, dark folds. You move within them, not across. Within. Your shoulders ease another degree. The back of your neck releases. Jaw unclenches without instruction. A distant movement touches the grass somewhere beyond sight, not sound exactly. Just a soft rearranging of air. It fades before it can form. Your rhythm remains, lift, place, release. The hills continue holding their shape. You continue holding yours, neither asking more than this. The ridge narrows again, not sharply, just enough that your steps feel more deliberate. The ground beneath you has grown firmer here, packed gently by time and weather. Grass lies closer to the surface. The air feels clearer at this slight height, cooler along your forearms, cooler along the bridge of your nose. You move forward without adjusting your pace, but something has shifted. The sense of forward has softened. You are not traveling toward a point. You are moving within a shape that continues whether you step or not. The hills no longer feel like distance. They feel like rhythm, a slow expansion, a long settling, a patient curve repeating itself without repetition. Your breathing finds the contour. Inhale with the rise. Exhale as the ground eases. You are not directing it. The body has aligned itself. A faint seam in the soil catches your attention. Not visually, through your soul, a slightly different texture. A narrow change in density, perhaps where rain once traveled and dried. Your foot crosses it. The difference disappears immediately. The ridge broadens again. The sensation of narrowness releases. You do not feel relief, only continuity. The sky above has deepened further, no longer colored, simply present, a vast surface without edges. The hills beneath that sky feel smaller now, not diminished. Integrated, they belong to the same tone. You continue. Your arms move only as much as balance requires. Hands loose, fingers resting into air. The grasses here grow unevenly, some patches taller, some flattened. You pass through them without leaving an impression. They return to their position after you move on. A distant slope curves outward to your left. Its form is barely visible now, but you sense it by the way the darkness shifts. The body recognizes space even when the eye no longer defines it. Your steps shorten again, not from effort, from ease. There is no need to cover ground. The repetition of movement has become self-sustaining. Lift, settle, shift. The pattern continues without emphasis. A faint coolness gathers low along the valley floor ahead. You enter it gradually. No threshold, just a slight change in temperature. The air rests heavier here. Your breath deepens by a fraction. No sound accompanies your steps now. Soil and grass absorb everything. Walking feels internal, as though the motion happens somewhere inside you rather than across the land. The hills no longer feel separate from your body. Their slow rises mirror your breath. Their shallow descents echo the release in your shoulders. You crest another subtle swell. The land beyond appears seamless, contours blending, edges dissolving. The absence of sharpness feels complete. You realize you are no longer orienting by sight. Your movement follows sensation alone, weight shifting, balance adjusting, breath lifting, breath easing. The ridge widens once more. This time the openness feels expansive, not in scale, in quiet. There is nothing to interrupt it, no fence, no stone, no tree breaking the line, only the long surface of earth beneath night. You move along it as though tracing a line that has always been there. A faint vibration travels through the ground beneath you, not strong enough to be named. Perhaps distant livestock, perhaps cooling earth settling. It fades before you register it fully. The sky remains steady. A single deep tone, your shoulders drop again. There is less distinction now between posture and rest. The body holds itself upright without tension. A small indentation in the soil catches the side of your boot, shallow, rounded, worn smooth. It could have been formed by repeated standing long ago. You pass it without pausing. The mark remains. The ridge lowers slightly. Gravity assists in a way that feels kind. You do not lean into it, you allow it. Your knees soften. Your center lowers almost imperceptibly. The valley below holds darker air. Not heavy, simply settled. You move into it without change in pace. The temperature cools another fraction. You feel it at your wrists first, then across your collarbone. Breathing steadies, longer now, unforced. The hills at the edges of the valley feel protective rather than enclosing. They curve inward gently, holding space without limiting it. Your awareness narrows slightly. The immediate ground is enough. Individual grasses no longer register. Texture becomes field. Field becomes surface. Surface becomes support. You step across another subtle rise. Barely there, but your body responds. Ankle flex, heel press, release. The repetition feels softer each time, not diminishing, refining. The night deepens again, but not abruptly. It gathers. The hills are silhouettes now, rounded shapes against a steady sky. You do not need to see their detail to know their presence. You feel them through balance, through incline, through space. The ridge flattens briefly. You stand for a moment without intending to stop. Feet planted evenly, breath steady. The air rests quietly against your face. Nothing moves with urgency. You begin walking again without deciding to. The transition from stillness to motion feels seamless. You are not restarting, you are continuing. The slope shifts upward slightly. The incline is shallow. Your breath lifts gently to meet it, then settles. The land here feels smoother, less textured, as though the hills have been worn down by countless seasons into long, patient curves. Your steps match that patience. No quickening, no pause, the ridge curves left almost imperceptibly. You follow it without noticing the decision. The horizon adjusts accordingly. The sky remains unchanged. A deep, calm tone. Your arms hang closer now, the swing nearly gone. Walking has become a contained motion. The ground accepts each footfall evenly. No stone interrupts, no root catches, only continuity. A faint, cool scent rises from the earth, moisture gathering in the soil, not damp enough to mark your steps, just enough to soften the surface. You move through it, the valley widens, then narrows again. The pattern does not repeat exactly, it evolves gently. The hills no longer appear as separate entities. They feel like a single surface folding slowly beneath night. You sense a subtle heaviness in your limbs, not fatigue, weight settling evenly, gravity welcomed. The body feels more grounded than before. Each step sinks fractionally deeper into contact before lifting again. The ridge rises once more. This ascent feels longer, though not steeper. Breath lengthens to accommodate it. You do not push, you do not slow. The rhythm carries you upward. At the crest, space expands. The valley beyond is darker still, almost uniform in tone. You descend gently. The air thickens slightly. Sound reduces further. If there were insects earlier, they are quieter now. The land seems to rest more fully. Your awareness drifts lower into your body. The roll of your foot, the bend of knee, the subtle sway of balance. The repetition has become internal. The ridge behind you no longer feels behind, it feels continuous. The path has dissolved into field, field into surface, surface into rhythm. You cross another shallow basin. The soil here is softer, yielding just enough to cushion. It restores itself immediately after you pass. There is no trace left behind. The sky deepens once more. Edges disappear entirely. The hills are now presence rather than shape. You move through them as part of that presence. Breathing slows again. Inhale longer, exhale longer still. The interval between steps widens. The body feels suspended between movements, not stopping, not arriving, continuing. A slight rise appears. You meet it without thought. Ankles flex, calves engage, then release. At the top, the land feels open again. You stand for a breath, then another. There is no need to mark the pause. You resume movement. The ridge lowers gradually. The descent feels like surrender to gravity rather than direction. The body yields calmly. The air cools again, evenly. The hills hold their patient curves. Nothing interrupts them. Nothing interrupts you. The ground beneath you feels almost level now. Not entirely flat, just balanced. The long arcs of the hills have eased into broader curves, so gradual they are felt more than seen. Your steps respond by becoming smaller still, not slower in a measurable way, simply contained. The heel lowers softly. The weight transfers without sound. The lift happens as though drawn upward by memory rather than effort. A faint thread of cooler air drifts across the ridge. It does not bend the grasses. It passes through them, through you, leaving no trace except a slight widening of breath. You notice how little adjustment is required now. Earlier, the body met incline and descent with subtle shifts. Now the land asks almost nothing, and so the body offers almost nothing in return, just continuation. The sky feels closer, not lower, more unified. Its depth stretches evenly from edge to edge without variation. The hills beneath it appear smoother than before, contours blending into one another until rise and fall feel like suggestion rather than structure. Your awareness loosens further from direction. There is no forward, no behind, only the immediate contact between soul and soil, breath and air, weight and ground. A small pocket of denser earth gathers beneath your foot. It holds slightly firmer for one step, then releases. The difference registers and disappears. Your shoulders soften again, not dropping. Settling, the muscles along your back release in tiny increments. The jaw eases without instruction. The repetition of movement has thinned into something almost indistinguishable from stillness. Lift, settle, shift. The sequence continues without emphasis. The hills remain patient. The sky remains wide. The land does not ask you to arrive. It simply continues. Walking has become merging. Merging has become rhythm. Rhythm has become quiet. The land continues. You continue within it, not separate, not distinct, only present. The ridge lowers by degrees, so small they do not register as descent. You feel it instead in the way your weight settles more fully into each step. The land is no longer something you climb. It is something you rest within while moving. The air cools another fraction, not enough to chill, enough to be noticed along your wrists, along the side of your face. Your pace adjusts without instruction. The heel lowers more quietly now. The roll forward feels almost continuous. There is less distinction between one step and the next. The grasses brush your calves in softer patterns. Their texture has grown heavier with evening. They bend and return slowly as though reluctant to rise again. You move through them without leaving a path. Behind you, the surface smooths. Ahead of you, it is already smooth. The hills around you have softened into presence rather than shape. They do not present peaks or valleys. They gather in broad folds that cradle the darkness evenly. The sky above no longer holds color. It holds depth, a quiet expanse without edge. Your breathing settles further into the center of your body. Inhale arriving evenly. Exhale widening gently before disappearing. The space between breaths lengthens. The land beneath you feels steadier now, more uniform. The slight adjustments of earlier slopes have eased into a near-level surface. Your knees no longer need to flex deeply. Your ankles remain loose. The body is aligned without effort. A faint sound drifts through the grasses to your left, not movement, more like the soft collapse of stems adjusting to air. It fades before it can gather shape. You continue. Your hands hang loosely at your sides, fingers relaxed, shoulders low. The hills extend outward in wide, dark arcs. They feel closer now, not because they have moved, because your attention has lowered into them. The boundary between ground and body has thinned. You are aware of weight settling downward, of gravity meeting earth without resistance. A subtle warmth lingers deep in the soil. You sense it faintly through your soles, the memory of sun held below the surface, cooling slowly, evenly. The ridge widens again. Sound disperses more fully here. Your steps make no audible mark. Walking feels internal. The sky remains wide and constant overhead. A faint, barely perceptible glow rests high above. Not a star to follow, just presence. You drift forward along a contour that no longer announces itself. Rise and fall have become suggestion rather than terrain. The movement is continuous. The grasses thin slightly for a stretch. Shorter here, more exposed. The ground feels firmer. Your weight meets it evenly. There is no need to look down. Your feet know where to land. The air rests steadily across your collarbone. Cool and balanced, the muscles along your back release another degree. You feel your posture lengthen without lifting. A small stone lies near your path, rounded, smoothed by seasons. You pass it without adjusting stride. It remains undisturbed. The hills beyond appear almost seamless now. No clear ridges dividing one from the next, just a broad undulation in shadow. You notice how little thought remains attached to movement. There is no evaluation of distance, no sense of progress, only continuation. The slope beneath you lowers again by a fraction. Your body responds by leaning forward barely enough to match it. Knees soften, breath deepens. The descent is not felt as downward. It feels like settling further into the landscape. The air thickens slightly in this lower stretch. Cooler, held close to the earth. It moves against your ankles gently as you pass. You continue without pause. Your steps feel smaller now, contained within a narrower arc. The heel touches. The weight rolls. The lift happens quietly. A low hum returns in the distance, perhaps insects, perhaps wind beyond another fold of land. It remains steady for a moment, then thins. The hills hold their shape patiently. You move within their rhythm. The sky above does not change. It remains even. You crest a slight rise you would not have named earlier. The top arrives without announcement. From here, the land stretches outward in uninterrupted curves. Dark upon dark, soft upon soft. The air feels still, completely settled. You stand for a moment without stopping, movement slowing to near stillness. Breath steady, then the walking resumes, not as decision, as continuation. The grasses here grow closer to the soil, their tips barely brushing your legs. The ground feels smoother beneath you, more uniform. The cooling has become complete. No residual warmth presses upward. Only balance remains. You feel your center lower, not physically, in awareness. The hills are no longer something ahead of you, they are something around you, within you. The path, if it exists, has dissolved entirely into field. You follow the contour of earth without needing a line. Your breathing aligns fully with your steps. Inhale, step, exhale, settle. The repetition becomes gentle and unbroken. A faint shift of air passes across your shoulders, not enough to disturb balance, just enough to remind you that the landscape breathes too. You move along a long, shallow arc, neither climbing nor descending, simply tracing the land's natural curve. The sky deepens further. The faint glow above thins until it blends into the rest. Your shoulders release again. The muscles along your jaw soften. Walking feels less like motion and more like being carried by gravity itself. The hills around you feel steady and patient. They do not change shape. They do not request attention. They remain. You continue within them, not progressing, not arriving, just merging slowly into their long, even presence. The ground beneath you grows more consistent, not flatter, more unified. The subtle shifts of incline and dips soften into a broad, steady plane. Your feet respond by landing with less correction. The ankles remain loose. The knees no longer need to absorb change. Movement becomes almost circular. Weight lowering, weight rising. Evenly, the grasses thin further along the stretch. Their tips brush only lightly now. The texture beneath your soles feels compacted, pressed over time by wind and weather rather than by many footsteps. You notice how your gaze has lowered fully, not fixed on the horizon, resting somewhere just ahead. The immediate ground feels sufficient. The sky exists without needing to be checked. A faint coolness settles across your shoulders, not sharp, not sudden, just a quiet recalibration of temperature. The air feels denser near the earth, thinner higher up. You move within that gradient calmly. A shallow dip appears and passes almost without distinction. The body leans forward a fraction, then returns upright. The correction is so small it barely registers. The hills beyond you hold their dark arcs without interruption. Their silhouettes blend into one continuous curve. There are no markers left, no gates, no stone walls, no interruptions in texture. Only repetition, only land. You realize the rhythm has slowed again, not in speed. In sensation, each step feels slightly more spacious than the last. The moment between lift and landing widens. Balance holds effortlessly in that pause. A distant movement of air crosses the hills somewhere out of sight. You feel it as a subtle shift along your sleeve, then it is gone. The silence that follows is layered, full. The soil beneath your feet feels faintly cooler now than before. The last stored warmth has withdrawn deeper. The surface holds neutrality. It neither warms nor chills, it simply supports. Your shoulders drop another fraction. Your hands feel heavier at your sides, not weighted, anchored. The hills do not rise ahead of you anymore, they expand outward. Sideways, their presence feels encompassing rather than directional. You continue forward along a curve that seems to trace the inner edge of one long, patient fold. There is no edge to reach, no crest to anticipate, just continuation. Your breathing slows again. The inhale lengthens slightly. The exhale travels farther before dissolving. The space between breaths feels generous. A small patch of shorter grass lies beneath your step. The contact is firmer there, then softer again. The variation passes. You move deeper into the quiet. The sky remains unbroken. The land remains steady. Your movement remains minimal and unforced. The merge has begun, though nothing announces it. The hills hold their shape. You hold yours, both resting in the same even dark. The land lowers again by such small degrees that it feels less like descent and more like easing. You follow without adjustment beyond what the body already knows. Knees soften. Weight shifts forward, then settles. The ground beneath you feels evenly cool now. The warmth of earlier hours has withdrawn entirely into deeper layers. The surface holds a quiet neutrality. Your steps land without sound. Soil and grass absorb the contact fully. Walking feels like moving through density rather than across distance. The hills to either side draw closer in presence, not nearer in space, more unified. Their dark curves blend into a single, continuous form. There are no clear ridges dividing one from another, only a long, patient fold of earth holding the night. Your breathing slows again. Inhale, widening gently through the ribs. Exhale, traveling farther before dissolving. The space between them expands. The air rests close against your skin. It does not move, it settles. You become aware of your spine aligning with the land's subtle arc, not upright in contrast to it, curving slightly with it. The boundary between posture and slope thins. A shallow basin opens ahead. You do not see its edges clearly. You sense the way the ground dips beneath your next step. The body responds automatically. The descent is smooth, continuous. The air grows marginally cooler within this fold. It gathers near the earth, brushing lightly along your ankles. The grasses here are shorter, closer to the soil. Their texture feels denser, more compact. Your heel meets the ground and does not echo. The sound is fully absorbed. You continue across the basin slowly. The hills at its edges hold steady like soft walls, not enclosing, simply present. The sky above remains uniform. No single point draws attention. Its depth feels even, uninterrupted. Your arms hang fully relaxed. The swing has diminished to almost nothing. Fingers rest lightly against the air. A faint movement passes through the grass to your right, not an animal, not wind exactly, more like the quiet collapse of stems adjusting under their own weight. It fades before it can form a shape. You reach the center of the basin. The ground feels slightly firmer here, compacted by years of subtle weathering. Your weight presses down evenly, then lifts, then settles again. Lift, place, release. The rhythm continues without variation. You begin ascending the far side. The incline is barely perceptible. Your breath deepens by a fraction. Calves engage quietly. No strain, only continuation. At the crest, the land widens again. The sense of enclosure dissolves into openness. The hills extend outward in long, dark arcs. They feel smoother than before, more merged. Your awareness lowers further into the body. The horizon matters less. The immediate contact between foot and soil becomes primary. The air grows stiller, almost suspended. It rests evenly across your shoulders and face. The cooling has stabilized now. There is no further drop in temperature, only steadiness. A low stone lies half buried near your path. Its surface is smooth from weather. A faint scratch crosses one edge. You pass without altering pace. It remains undisturbed. The land begins another shallow descent. The body follows without thought. The shift feels like settling deeper into fabric. Your breathing lengthens again. Inhale smooth and quiet. Exhale dissolving gradually. The space between them feels wider than before. The hills to either side appear to lean inward slightly, not closing, curving protectively. The basin ahead is darker than the last. Its center holds more shadow. You step into it without hesitation. The air here feels denser, cooler along your wrists. The grasses brush softly at your ankles. Their moisture faint but present, walking slows further. Not measured, felt, Each step becomes smaller, contained within a narrower arc. The silence thickens, not empty, layered. A faint hum lingers somewhere beyond sight, perhaps insects, perhaps distant wind along another ridge. It remains steady for a moment, then dissolves. You reach the basin's center. Pause without stopping, breath steady, weight evenly distributed. Then the ascent begins again, so gradual it feels like continuity rather than change. The land lifts beneath you gently. Your posture tilts forward by the smallest degree, then returns upright at the crest. The hills beyond appear even darker now, their contours barely distinguishable from the sky. Edges soften further. Distance compresses into tone. You move along the ridge that forms here. It feels broad and stable, not narrow, not sharp. Your shoulders release again. The muscles along your back soften incrementally. Your jaw loosens without instruction. The rhythm of walking has become internal. There is no sense of covering ground, only repetition, only contact, only breath. A faint thread of scent drifts upward, dry grass cooling, mineral earth. It passes gently through the air and fades. The ridge levels completely for a stretch. The body aligns effortlessly. No incline to meet, no descent to manage. Your steps land evenly. Weight settles fully before lifting again. Lift, place, release. The sky remains unchanged, deep, unbroken. You continue along this level span. The grass is thin again here, short and compact. The soil feels firm and smooth. Walking becomes almost suspended between movements. The pause between steps lengthens. Balance holds naturally in that space. The hills do not shift, they remain patient. The land does not ask you to arrive anywhere. It holds you exactly where you are. Another shallow curve begins beneath you, neither up nor down in any pronounced way. Just an arc. You follow it without deviation. The boundary between body and landscape feels thinner now. Your spine mirrors the slope. Your breath mirrors the land's slow rise and fall. Nothing accelerates, nothing concludes. The merge deepens quietly. You are no longer moving through hills. You are moving with them. The land continues. You continue, both resting in the same steady, unbroken dark. The ridge narrows slightly, not enough to require care, enough to refine your steps. Your feet place themselves more precisely now. The contact feels deliberate, balanced. The soil beneath holds steady firmness. No gravel, no loose dust, just compact earth that receives weight evenly. The air feels almost weightless against your skin. It neither presses nor pulls, it rests. You notice the way your breath has softened at the top of each inhale, a slight suspension. Then the exhale lengthens gently. The pattern forms without effort. A shallow dip opens beneath you. The descent is barely measurable. You feel it in the slight forward tilt of your chest, in the quiet engagement of calf and ankle. Then it levels again. The hills to your left blur fully into the sky. There is no line dividing them, only density against depth. You move along the arc of the ridge without thought of direction. Forward is no longer distinct from stillness. A faint shift of air crosses behind you. It brushes your sleeves lightly, then disappears. The grasses here are shorter still, pressed low by wind and season. They make no sound as you pass. Your hands feel heavier now, not tired, settled. The body recognizes that nothing further is required. The land beneath your feet feels continuous. No visible path, no interruption, just surface meeting soul. Your shoulders lower another fraction. The muscles at the base of your neck release slowly. The sky holds its even tone, unchanging. You crest another barely there rise. At its top, there is no view to claim, only the same steady continuity of hills fading outward. You take another step, and another. The repetition remains soft. The merge deepens without announcement. The ridge beneath you does not end. It simply broadens into a long, quiet span where rise and fall become indistinguishable. Your steps adjust to that sameness without effort. The heel lowers. The weight settles, the lift follows, even unhurried. The hills no longer present themselves as shapes, they exist as presence. Dark density against a sky that has deepened into one continuous tone. No edge, no seam. The air rests close to your skin. Cool, but not cold, balanced. Your shoulders drop another fraction. The muscles across your back release slowly, one quiet layer at a time. Walking feels less like forward motion and more like alignment. The land beneath you curves gently, and your spine follows that curve without instruction. You are not correcting for slope anymore. You are matching it. A shallow descent opens, so subtle it feels like the earth lowering itself rather than you stepping downward. You follow without hesitation. Knees soften. Weight leans forward by the smallest degree. The grasses here lie closer to the soil. Their tips brush your ankles lightly. No sound follows. The silence feels fuller now. Not empty, held. You reach the center of the fold and feel the air cool by a fraction more. The difference is slight but present along your wrists. The ground holds steady firmness. No loose stones, no shifting dust, just soil that supports evenly. Your breathing deepens, inhale arriving with smooth expansion, exhale lengthening farther than before. The space between them widens. You begin ascending the far side. The incline is almost imagined. Calves engage gently, ankles flex. Then the ridge levels again. The hills stretch outward in long, dark arcs. They no longer appear layered, they feel unified. Your gaze lowers closer to your feet. The immediate ground is enough. There is no horizon to study, no crest to anticipate, just continuation. A faint thread of cooler air moves across your collarbone. It does not linger. It passes evenly through the space around you. Your hands hang loosely at your sides. The swing of your arms has nearly ceased. Balance holds without effort. The ridge narrows slightly again, not sharply, just enough to refine your placement. Your steps grow smaller, more contained. Lift, settle, pause. The repetition feels internal now. You are aware of gravity meeting earth, of weight lowering fully before rising again. The hills around you hold their patient curves. They do not shift. They do not fade. They remain steady within the dark. A faint movement stirs somewhere beyond the next fold. Not sound, more like a soft rearranging of air. It dissolves quickly. The silence returns layered and even. The land beneath you becomes more uniform still. The subtle dips and rises of earlier hours have eased into a broad, steady plane. Your posture lengthens naturally, not upright against the earth. Aligned with it, the sky feels closer now, not lowered, unified. Its depth stretches without variation from one edge to the other. You crest another almost imperceptible rise. At its top, nothing changes. The view remains the same soft expanse of shadow and tone. You do not pause, you continue. The descent that follows is so gradual it feels like settling into fabric. Your weight lowers fully into each step. The heel touches without emphasis. The roll forward is seamless. The lift happens quietly. Your breathing slows further. Inhale, exhale. The space between them feels generous. The hills no longer feel outside you, they feel encompassing. Your awareness rests deeper in the body. The muscles along your jaw release. Your neck softens, shoulders lower again. The grasses thin further along this stretch. Short, close to the earth, their texture brushes your calves lightly. No resistance, no interruption. A faint scent rises briefly, mineral earth cooling, dry stems releasing their last warmth. It fades almost immediately. The ridge widens once more. Sound disperses entirely. Your steps leave no trace. Walking feels like drifting across a surface that restores itself instantly after contact. The sky remains unchanged, deep, even. A single faint brightness may linger somewhere high above. It does not call your gaze, it simply exists. You move through another shallow basin. The air here is denser. Cooler, it rests against your ankles softly. You cross without slowing further. The ascent on the far side is minimal. Calves engage quietly, then release. The land levels. The hills stretch outward in long, uninterrupted folds. They appear almost flat now, contour dissolving into tone. Your steps shorten again, the intervals between them widen. Balance holds effortlessly in that suspended moment before each landing. You notice the weight of your hands, how they hang without tension. The swing has faded into stillness. The body feels heavy in the safest way. Anchored, supported, the ridge curves gently to the left. You follow it without intention. Direction has lost meaning. Only continuation remains. A faint hum drifts across the hills once more. Even low, it does not increase or fade dramatically. It simply settles into the dark. You crest another subtle rise. The top arrives without announcement. Beyond it, the land holds the same steady pattern. No variation, no escalation, only repetition. Your breathing slows further. The inhale no longer feels separate from the air. The exhale dissolves without edge. The space between them feels like resting. The hills remain patient, the sky remains wide, the land beneath your feet feels continuous and unbroken. You move along its surface as though guided by gravity alone. There is no sense of covering distance, no memory of how far you have come, only this moment of contact. Lift, settle, release. The repetition has thinned into quiet merging. The boundary between body and landscape feels almost transparent. Your spine mirrors the long arc of the ridge. Your breath mirrors its rise and fall. Nothing accelerates, nothing concludes. The hills continue holding their shape in the dark. You continue within them, not progressing, not arriving, simply resting in the same slow, enduring rhythm that has shaped the land long before you began to walk. The ridge softens again beneath you, not lowering, not rising, simply easing into a longer arc. Your steps respond by becoming lighter. The heel meets soil without emphasis. The roll forward is continuous. The lift happens quietly. The ground feels almost level now, so even that correction disappears. Your ankles remain loose. Your knees no longer register change. Walking feels less like movement and more like presence sustained. The air rests steadily against your face. Cool, but without edge, it does not travel, it simply holds. The hills to either side feel closer, not in distance, in cohesion. Their dark curves merge into one uninterrupted line. There are no visible separations, only depth layered upon depth. Your breathing slows again, inhale arriving softly, exhale lengthening farther before dissolving. The pause between them widens. You move along another shallow dip. The descent feels like settling deeper into fabric. Your weight lowers fully into the earth, then rises without effort. The grasses here lie flat, pressed close to the soil. They make no sound as you pass. The silence thickens, not heavy, structured. A faint shift of air brushes your sleeve. It is gone before you can name it. Your shoulders release another fraction. The muscles along your back soften further. Your jaw loosens completely. The ridge widens again. Sound disperses fully across it. Your steps vanish into the surface. You are no longer aware of direction. Only contact, only breath. The sky remains unchanged, deep, uniform. A faint brightness may linger somewhere high above. It does not draw you upward. It simply exists within the same field of quiet. The land beneath you continues in long, patient folds. Rise and fall have become suggestion rather than structure. Your spine mirrors that softness. Your posture aligns without effort. You crest another almost imperceptible rise. Nothing shifts at the top. The view remains steady and dark. You continue, lift, settle, pause. The repetition feels complete in itself. There is no next moment to prepare for. The hills hold their shape. You hold yours, both resting within the same even, unbroken night. The ridge does not end. It widens into something gentler. The ground beneath your feet becomes almost entirely level, though still alive with the faintest suggestion of curve. Walking continues, but the sense of traveling fades. You are no longer moving toward anything. You are simply moving. The air has cooled fully now. It rests against your skin in an even layer, neither warm nor cold, simply present. The grasses brush your ankles softly, dampened slightly by the settling night. Each contact is light, brief, forgotten as soon as it passes. Your breathing slows further. Inhale. The air enters quietly, filling without reaching. Exhale, longer now, smoother. The pause between breaths widens into something almost spacious. The hills around you no longer appear as hills, they are contours of depth. A continuous darkened fabric folded gently outward. The sky above is seamless. A single tone, no clear boundary between land and air. Your steps shorten again, not from fatigue, from ease, lift, place, release. The pattern repeats without needing to be maintained. You feel the weight of your body more distinctly now, balanced evenly across both feet. Grounded, supported, there is no need to look ahead. The ground immediately before you is sufficient. A slight downward slope begins, so gradual it feels like the earth lowering itself rather than you descending. Your knees soften, ankles adjust. Gravity assists without pulling. The descent continues for several breaths, long, even uninterrupted. The valley below holds shadow more fully. Not thick, not heavy, just settled. You move into it. The temperature dips by a fraction. The air feels denser near the ground. Moisture lingers faintly against your skin. Breathing deepens in response. The rhythm steadies. Your arms hang closer now, almost still. Hands relaxed, fingers loose. The sound of insects rises briefly, then evens out into a low, continuous tone. It does not vary, it holds. The valley floor levels completely. The soil feels firm and even beneath your feet. No stones, no interruptions, only continuity. You realize walking has become nearly silent, each footfall absorbed. No echo, no rustle beyond the faint brushing of grass. Your breathing becomes the only noticeable rhythm. Inhale, exhale. The intervals widen further. The body grows heavier. Not tired, settled, your shoulders release again. The back of your neck softens. Your jaw loosens fully. The hills behind you and before you feel indistinguishable now. There is no sense of having come from anywhere. No sense of going anywhere. Only the steady presence of land and air. A slight rise appears ahead. You follow it without decision. The incline is minimal, breath lifts gently, calves engage lightly. The movement feels economical. At the crest you pause, not deliberately, simply because stillness arrives, feet planted evenly, weight distributed fully, breath steady. The sky remains deep and unbroken. A faint star may be present, diffused into the darkness rather than sharp. It does not demand attention. The land stretches outward in softened waves. No clear lines, no distinct edges. The journey feels complete here, but you continue one step, then another. The slope lowers again. Gradual, gentle, your body yields to it. The valley ahead appears darker than before, but not enclosed, just quiet. You enter it slowly. The grasses here are shorter, cooler. Their tips bend and rise without sound. Your steps slow again. The pattern of movement stretches even wider. Lift, pause, place, release. The silence deepens. It is not empty, it is layered. A faint movement of air passes through once, then settles completely. Your awareness shifts inward again. The steady pulse in your wrists, the expansion of lungs, the subtle warmth at your core. The land mirrors that rhythm. Slow rise, gentle fall, even pause. You begin to feel less like a figure walking across hills and more like a rhythm moving through space. The valley widens. The air cools another degree. The body responds by softening further. Your spine aligns naturally. Your shoulders hang loose. Your steps become smaller still. There is no effort now, only continuation. The hills feel protective rather than expansive. Their curves surround without enclosing. The sky remains wide overhead. Uniform, calm, you slow to near stillness, not stopping, just moving at the pace of breath. Inhale, lift, exhale, settle. The sequence becomes seamless. You notice how quiet everything has become. No distant sound, no movement beyond your own breathing. Even that begins to soften. The body feels supported entirely by the earth. Each step sinks fractionally deeper before lifting again. The soil accepts your weight without resistance. You crest one final gentle rise within the valley. It is almost imperceptible. At the top, nothing changes. The hills remain dark and even, the sky unchanged, but something within you has quieted further. You take another step, then another. The motion feels optional now. The ground beneath you feels so steady it could hold you without movement at all. Your breathing lengthens again. Exhale slightly longer than inhale, the pause between them widening. Your limbs feel heavy in the safest way. Anchored, held, the journey has dissolved into presence. There is no path visible, no fence line, no stone circle, only land and sky in quiet balance. You allow your steps to slow until they nearly disappear. Lift becomes subtle, place becomes gentle, release becomes complete. The hills continue whether you move or not. The air rests evenly across your skin. The sky holds its depth. You feel yourself settling further into the rhythm that has always been here. The earth beneath your feet steady. The night around you calm, breathing slow, body grounded, movement soft enough to vanish at any moment. And you remain within the hills, not traveling, not arriving, simply resting in the long, even quiet that carries everything forward without effort. The ground remains steady beneath you. You notice how evenly your weight settles now. There is no forward lean, no subtle pull toward the next step. When your foot lifts, it does so lightly. When it lowers, the earth receives it without resistance. The movement feels less like travel and more like settling into a rhythm that has already been moving long before you arrived. The hills hold their shape around you, not sharply, not dramatically. Simply present, their contours no longer suggest distance. They suggest continuity. The sky deepens another shade. It does not darken abruptly. It absorbs. The faint glow that once hovered at the horizon thins until it becomes indistinguishable from the rest of the night. You realize you are no longer scanning the space ahead. Your gaze rests somewhere lower now, not fixed, not searching, just soft. The air feels cooler along your fingertips, along your cheekbones, along the back of your neck. It does not chill, it balances. The warmth stored in your core remains steady, radiating outward evenly. Inside and outside meet without contrast. You take another step. It is smaller than the last. Lift, place, release. The rhythm continues, but it has slowed so much it feels almost suspended between motions. The grasses brush your ankles faintly. Their texture is heavier now, carrying evening moisture that gathers quietly along each blade. When your hand drifts outward, fingers grazing the surface, the tips bend and rise without sound. The land beneath you seems to breathe, not visibly, but in the way the incline changes so gradually it feels like inhalation and exhalation beneath your feet. A slight upward tilt, then level, then a slow, barely noticeable easing downward. Your breathing mirrors it exactly. Inhale, the chest expands gently. Exhale, longer now, the pause after the exhale widens again. Comfortable, spacious. You become aware of how little effort remains in your muscles. Calves soften. Thighs release their subtle hold. The small muscles in your feet spread evenly inside your shoes. The shoulders drop another fraction. The neck lengthens naturally. Even your hands feel heavier, as though gravity has increased gently but kindly. The hills do not recede into the distance. They remain around you in quiet arcs. The darkness gives them depth rather than erasing them. They feel closer now, protective. A wide cradle of land that neither confines nor demands. You step into another shallow fold. The ground here feels marginally softer. Your foot presses down. The soil yields slightly, then restores itself as you lift again. The movement is so smooth it feels like drifting through something that supports you fully. There is no sound to accompany your steps now. No rustle, no echo. The silence is complete but not empty. It carries its own density, a fullness that requires nothing added. Your breath becomes the quietest movement in the landscape. Even that begins to soften. Inhale, barely audible. Exhale, long and even. The intervals stretch. Time no longer feels segmented. There is no sense of earlier or later. Only this steady, unbroken now. You slow again until walking feels optional. You could stop here and nothing would change. The hills would remain. The air would remain. The sky would continue deepening by imperceptible degrees. You take one more step, then another, but they are almost indistinguishable from stillness. The weight of your body feels perfectly distributed, balanced across both feet, anchored without pressure. The earth beneath you steady and unyielding in the most reassuring way. You notice how complete everything feels. No summit missing, no valley unfinished. The journey has dissolved into a quiet holding. Your breathing slows once more. The exhale lengthens slightly beyond the inhale. The pause between them opens gently. The hills hold their patient curves. The sky remains seamless and calm. The air rests evenly across your skin, and you continue within that softness, not traveling toward anything, not leaving anything behind, simply resting inside the long, steady rhythm that has shaped these sun-warmed hills long before footsteps ever crossed them. The hills do not ask you to stop. They do not ask you to go on. They simply hold their shape in the deepening quiet. You move a little farther along the ridge, though the word farther has lost its meaning. The distance between one step and the next feels complete in itself. The land no longer stretches ahead as something to cross. It rests around you evenly. The air cools another fraction. It settles along your forearms first, then across your cheeks, then lightly at your collar. Not sharp, not sudden, just a gradual balancing of temperature until the warmth inside you and the coolness outside you feel matched. Your steps grow smaller again. Lift, settle, a long, gentle transfer of weight. The soil beneath you feels firm and neutral now. No lingering heat rises from it. The day has folded itself into memory beneath the surface. What remains is steady ground, supporting without drawing attention. The sky above is deep and uninterrupted. Any lingering color has dissolved into a single, quiet tone. There are faint points of light high overhead, but they do not puncture the dark. They sit within it, softened. You do not look for patterns in them. Your gaze rests lower, nearer the earth. The hills have lost their edges. What once appeared as separate rises now reads as one continuous, undulating presence. The distinction between ridge and valley has thinned until it no longer matters. You slow, not because you are tired, because there is nothing urging you forward. The rhythm of walking stretches. Between one step and the next, there is a gentle suspension, a brief moment where balance holds perfectly without effort. The body recognizes that nothing needs correcting. A faint movement brushes through the grasses at your side, not wind exactly, more like a shared adjustment in the air. The stems lean slightly, then return. You feel the weight of your arms hanging naturally. The muscles across your shoulders loosen further. The back of your neck releases. Breathing deepens. Inhale, even. Exhale, longer than before. The pause after the exhale widens comfortably, as though time itself has grown spacious. You reach a shallow crest and stop without intention. There is no view to admire, no dramatic horizon, only the sense of standing within something vast and gentle. The land beneath your feet feels steady and complete, not temporary, not fragile. It has held countless days of warmth and countless nights of cooling. It will hold many more. You shift your weight slightly. The adjustment is small and quiet. The grasses brush softly at your ankles. Their tips are cool now, dampened by evening air. When you move your hand through them, they part without resistance and close again behind you. There is no trace of where you passed. The hills feel closer now, not physically, but in presence. Their curves seem to surround you rather than stretch away. The night gathers them into one continuous form. Your breathing aligns with the slope beneath you. There is no incline now, yet the body still mirrors the land's earlier rise and fall. A gentle lift in the chest, a longer settling release. The silence is complete. It does not echo. It does not expand. It simply exists. You take another step, then another, but walking no longer feels directional. It feels like drifting within a surface that holds you evenly. The ground is firm enough to support, soft enough to accept. Each footfall completes itself fully before the next begins. There is no hurry, no destination shaping the rhythm. The night air rests steadily against your skin. It has lost the memory of sun. It carries only neutrality now, cool and balanced. Your gaze lowers further. The immediate ground feels sufficient. You notice the texture beneath your soles more clearly than the sky above. The slight compression of soil, the faint give of grass, the way the heel settles fully before the weight rolls forward. Lift, settle, pause, the intervals stretch again. You realize that stopping would not change anything. The hills would remain in their dark curves. The sky would hold its depth. The air would continue to rest lightly against you. You take one final step forward, then allow your feet to grow still. Standing now, you feel the entire surface of your body supported evenly. The weight distributed across both soles, ankles relaxed, knees soft, spine aligned without effort. The breath continues. Inhale, gentle and unforced. Exhale, longer. The pause between them widens again. There is no need to measure time here. The night has its own steady pacing. The hills do not alter it. You become aware of the faintest pulse within your body, the steady rhythm that has been present all along. It matches the quiet persistence of the land around you. The hills do not move, but they feel alive in their stillness. Not animated, not shifting. Simply enduring. You let your shoulders drop fully now. The last trace of effort dissolves. The muscles along your back soften. Your jaw releases completely. The space around you feels rounded and whole. No edges, no sharpness. The darkness does not press inward. It opens outward. You remain standing for a moment longer. Then, without planning to, you allow your knees to bend slightly and lower yourself to the ground. The grass cushions you gently. The earth beneath it feels firm and reassuring. You sit first. Then ease back further, letting your spine meet the surface fully. The ground supports you completely. There is no need to adjust position. The coolness of the earth settles along your back evenly. It does not seep, it balances. Above you, the sky is wide and uninterrupted. You no longer distinguish individual hills. Their silhouettes blend into the lower edge of night. The horizon is no longer a line. It is emerging. Breathing deepens again. Inhale, slow. Exhale, longer still. The pause opens. The body feels heavier now, but safely so. Anchored, held. The grasses at your sides move faintly as a light current of air passes through. You feel it brush along your sleeves, then fade. The silence remains unbroken. There is nothing to anticipate, nothing to complete. The journey has thinned into stillness without closing. You feel the steadiness of the earth beneath every part of you. Solid, supportive, unchanging, your breath aligns fully now with that steadiness. Inhale, the chest rises gently. Exhale, a slow release that seems to flow outward into the dark. The intervals stretch further. The hills no longer feel separate from your body. Their slow, enduring shape mirrors the quiet rhythm inside you. The sky holds its depth without drawing your attention upward. The air rests evenly across your face. Your eyelids grow heavier, not forced, just ready. Another inhale, soft. Another exhale, long. The muscles across your shoulders and hips release entirely now. The ground holds you without effort. There is no need to move again, no need to stand, no need to continue walking. The hills remain, the sky remains, the earth beneath you steady and complete. And you rest within that steadiness, not traveling, not arriving, simply held inside the quiet, unbroken rhythm of land and breath. As the night carries everything forward exactly as it always has, steady and patient, long after footsteps have grown still and the hills keep their gentle, enduring shape. And the night continues around you, breath moving in, breath moving out, nothing required, nothing expected, the land holding its quiet form, the sky resting above it, the air steady against your skin. You are not traveling anywhere now, you are already here, and the hills remain. The hills continue as they always have. Its rhythm remains, you do not need to follow it, you are already within it. The night gathers, the quiet holds, and the rest will carry itself.